Hare Krishna. Give me this mic. Put it to Maharaj. Put it to Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. So on behalf of devotee of ISKCON Kanpur, we'd like to welcome the Holiness Romapada Swami Maharaj and all of you. Hare Bol. I am very happy and devotees are eagerly they are waiting from morning. Maharaj driver. We have some plan, Krishna Ayodhya plan, coming to this sermon. So I will just start a little bit about this project. So Romapada had 3 offices. One was in Allahabad, other was in Kanpur, and other was in Jhansi. So Prabhupada had come many times here in Kanpur. He wrote several letters, almost 17 letters. And at least 3 letters he wrote, and all those 3 letters he mentioned the same thing. We should certainly have a center in Kanpur, the 3rd most important city in India. First he wrote after Kolkata and Bombay, later on he wrote after Bombay and Kolkata. Otherwise, same kind of letter. So when I became General Secretary of Uttar Pradesh, so besides Vrindavan, there is no temple from 75 till today. So it stuck in my head and I got haunted that we must have this temple. So we planned by Krishna element, we got 5 acre land to Nitin and the project came more acre. So altogether about 15 acre land here. Actually, this same land was donated to Srila Prabhupada in 1972.
Wow.
Same land by Mr. Bhargava. You can read in Prabhupada's language because it became Bhargava, Kanpur. And Prabhupada asked Gurudas to come here, but those days nobody wanted to come out of Vrindavan. So when I came, I had longing to meet Mr. Bhargava. I went to meet him. He was almost 85 plus. When I told him that what we are doing, he was crying. He said, Swamiji asked me to join him, but I was too attached to my wife and children. That's everybody's story. So my children are also in America. My wife passed away. And sad story. So he cried. Though when we came here, we had nothing actually. We didn't have a proper road, this road. Neither we had a bridge to come from there to here. And people used to kill and throw people here. That's why they dumping place, a murder. That's the story. So first thing I wanted to boundary walk. So Mr. Bhargava came home after me that day. First thing. And he said, where is your land? So I told him Kyora. Kyora means Bank of Ganga. Ganga is here. Ganga will flow here before. So in Kyora, he said, where is Kyora? So I said, border of Sambalpur and Kyora. No, our this place is half in one area and half in other area. He said, what is your problem? So I told 30, 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40. That's my land. I said, I gave away that land. I gave to Swami the same land. I said, yeah. And whether it be or not, my dear, we are standing on hand at that time. How, if anybody wants to give something to Krishna, Krishna accepts it. If somebody wants to give something to your devotee, Prabhupada accepted it. So like Juhuland. Juhuland was also given, and Prabhupada, before he went to America, he saw Juhuland, if I get this land, I will give it to him before he went to America. Anyway, got the whole story solved. So the lady who gave the land, 5 acre land, and when ISKCON came, you know, when ISKCON comes anywhere, the prices went up. The prices started going up. So the lady wanted to sell this land. She didn't want to give us. But anyway, after some struggle, we got the land, and we bought the land. In 2009, we made a small temple, and we were time bound to finish the temple in India time. So in 2009, 2007 came on the land. 2009, we installed Radha Madhavji. If you see closely Radha Madhav, Krishna looks like the Krishna of Bombay. And Radharani looks like the Radharani of Vrindavan. Yeah. And name is Radha Madhav. So that means Bombay, Vrindavan, and Mayapur. 3 in 1. Prabhupada office, Prabhupada home, and Prabhupada place of worship. Everything here. In 2009, Radha arrived, and in 2011, we started construction of this temple. Now, this temple, our architect, the same architect who built Jew temple, Vishvamitra, and he was trained by Romapada. When he designed Jew temple, that time, when he took to Prabhupada said it's too small, he got to make it. He made 3 designs, and every time Prabhupada said it's too small. Prabhupada said, my design I will never think it's small. So Premna got this instruction from Prabhupada, and now he is the biggest architect, the biggest all multi-story building in Bombay, designed by him. So he designed this temple. Prabhupada Maharaj was saying, oh, this looks like children. I said, yes, some have to look like father. Extension of Jew. Anyway, our deity, 3 deity, Dai Gausundar, Radha Madhav, Vrinda Visakha. Then we have Janaki, Vallabh, Lakshman, Hanuman. Long name, not Sitaram. What? These are significant. Janaki, Vallabh. Because when Sita came here, in Valmiki place, he went to Vittu. Vittu is known as Brahma Avatar. In Bhagavatam, in 5th canto, you read the Pastimes of Vishvamitra, teaching his son, Nayan Deho De Bhaja De Loke, that happened here in Vittu. Brahma Avatar. Brahma was asked to perform tapasya, that also took place here. This is center of the universe, it is around the whole India. That place is there. And Dhruv was inserted by his stepmother here, Nirmala, and from here he went to Madhura. And Valmiki, of course, through Ramayana, 2 sons of Lord Ram, Lord, who were born here. So Janaki, she has vanished from Ayodhya. She was staying here. She was staying, but that time she was Janaki. And Janaki Vallabh, not Ram, Janaki Vallabh. Although she has stayed here, but her heart was, her purity was towards Lord Vallabh, her beloved. So therefore the name is given Janaki Vallabh Lakshman Hanuman. So now Hare Krishna mercy, the Prabhupada blessing. to fulfill his desire. In 2014, we started in October 2011 the construction of the temple. In 2014, temple was inaugurated. Still a little bit work of marble going on, but hopefully by end of this year, everything will be over. We have very highly qualified devotees. Prem Harinam Prabhu here. Prem Harinam Prabhu is our temple president. He has done his MBA. So you have around 100 devotees and 100 cows. There is competition. Who can win? Anyway, I will not take much of your time. I will let Maharaj speak. But are you ready? Are you ready?
It's going on.
Okay. So there are many things happen. We have biggest festival here. It's known as Holy Milan. And we have big crowd. Then every year for a student under the government scheme of the education, we have expression program. And last year almost 18,000 students took part. Here we were like 10,000. And this year we are planning. By the way, we also have team building system. That means we all have to work, whether me or any bhakta. We all have to do some kar seva, book distribution, harinam, big festival, everything and everything. Alright, that's it. How are you, mother? Feel better? Yeah, every month we have devotee appreciation. Wish devotee birthday, wish happy birthday. So we want the program expression. You have sound in there? Around 18,000 students took part last year. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
This park inauguration is... Okay, it's Indian, okay. Jai Radha Madhava. That was pretty quick kirtan, right? Kunja Bihari. Okay. I'd just like to continue on the discussion that we completed or didn't complete with Vishvamitra Muni visiting Ayodhya, requesting Dasarath to send Ram for the difficult mission of destroying Maricha and Subahu. So I'm sure all of you that were with us remember, and those of you that weren't with us, you know all the story anyway. And on the way to Siddha Ashram, which was the ashram of Vishvamitra Muni, they passed through many places, many lessons, many narrations by Vishvamitra Muni describing many activities and histories behind the ashram, history behind the river Sarayu, and so forth. Where we ended up, especially I'm sure you remember just from the images of Tathaka, and the history of that forest. Now the history of that forest was, this is just a refresher, at one time, what then looked like a desolate, ruined, frightful forest was flourishing. It's a place where Indra had gone after the killing of Vritrasura, and for his purification, celestial waters were used for his bathing or purification. And another nearby forest to supply edibles. And both became very wonderful, wonderful places. He gave them specific names. Ram then asked Vishvamitra Muni, if it was so wonderful, how did it become so desolate like this? And then we heard a nice description of how it became ruined. I want to add something because it's specific about Subahu and Maricha, who we're going to hear about this evening. Vishvamitra Muni explained that there was a yaksha named Suketu. Suketu was without children. He underwent strong austerities in order to get a benediction from Brahma that he would have a son. Brahma appeared, said, well, no son but a daughter, and a daughter that will be very beautiful and as powerful as 1,000 elephants. And so a daughter was born. He named the daughter Tathaka. Tathaka made a mistake. She married a Rakshasa named Sunda. There were two children, Maricha and Subahu. And Sunda had this behavior of harassing people, and he harassed the wrong person. He harassed Agastya, and Agastya burnt him to ashes to take revenge. Tathaka, with her two sons, Maricha and Subahu, went to attack and devour Agastya. Agastya didn't kill them, but he cursed that Tathaka would become big monster and a Rakshasa and ugly looking and live on the flesh of human beings. And similarly, Subahu and Maricha were cursed. So as a get back to Agastya, she went and ravaged that forest area that was part of Agastya's hermitage or residence. And that's why the forest looked like it looked. That's what Vishvamitra Muni said. Now, an important detail is these two boys, Maricha and Subahu, were without a father. Sunda was gone. So they went and took shelter of another in a father-like relationship. And that person they took shelter of was Sumalin. And these are lots of names for those of us that aren't from India. So Sumalin was one of three brothers, Mali, Sumali, and Malyavan. They became terrorists and inhabited Lanka. And in their terrorism, the demigods approached Lord Vishnu, help! And so he helped. Big battle, Mali was killed, the other two left Lanka, and Sumali was one of them. Now Sumali, if you remember, had a number of children, and one of those children, a daughter, became Ravana's mother. Kaikashi, the daughter of Sumali, by his arrangement or indication, Kaikeshi took shelter of Vishravas, became his wife, and Ravana was born. So when the two sons of Tathaka took shelter of Sumali, he accepted them in that kind of a relationship, although they weren't actually his sons. He accepted them like his sons. So later, when there was this, Ravana became again the conqueror of Lanka, then Maricha and Subahu were part of the entourage. They were part of his henchmen. Although they were both elder, he affectionately called them his maternal uncles. So like his mother's brothers, because they accepted Sumalin as their father. They weren't blood uncles, but like uncles. So although Maricha and Subahu, so we'll certainly hear more about Maricha as we go along, later in the Ramayana as well, but he was elder. He was like his mother's brother of age. But Ravana was the chief terrorist amongst terrorists. So he was engaging Maricha and Subahu in tormenting the Brahmanas. Now, if you remember, Vishvamitra Muni, we're going to hear details about Vishvamitra Muni as he's entering into the kingdom of Janaka. A whole session we're going to spend on hearing about the details of Vishvamitra Muni's life, but at one time he was a king. And when he was a king, he was a very powerful king. And he was such a powerful king that he received from Lord Shiva mantras that could invoke 100 celestial weapons. And he gave those 100 celestial weapons to Ram and Lakshman after they defeated Tathaka. Because after he defeated Tathaka, if you remember, Indra was the one who had gone there previously before Tathaka came and spoiled it. So Indra approached Vishvamitra Muni requesting, please reward these two boys because this is Lord Vishnu. And we have appealed to Lord Vishnu to appear. And this is Lord Vishnu, Ram, and his brother, the expansion of Lord Vishnu as Sankarshan. Give them the celestial weapons that Lord Shiva gave to you when you were a king, because he can use them for defeating Ravana. Of course, he's Lord Vishnu, doesn't need somebody's weapons. Everything comes from him. But in the Leela, that was Indra's request. So the next morning, because these sacred mantras are not to be given after the sunset and before the sunrise, so after the sunrise the next morning, Vishvamitra Muni gave, according to Valmiki Ramayana, 48 of the 100, because there were two daughters of Daksha. that were married to Krishashva, and each of the two wives had 50 sons, which were manifestations of celestial weapons, and there were mantras to invoke them. Vishvamitra Muni taught the mantras. Ram, as we heard at Valmiki's ashram, one of the qualities of Ram was he had an amazing memory. He just heard the mantras once, and he didn't have to have a mantra book. He knew them perfectly. So he invoked the mantras. The personalities appeared, standing before him with folded palms, one by one, and eventually he dismissed them and said, "You can go back to your celestial abodes, and whenever I think of you and call you by mantra, please come. At your service will come." Then he requested Vishvamitra Muni to learn how to retract those mantras. And those mantras were then, the retraction of those mantras were taught. I wanted to elaborate a little bit further on something in relation to Tataka. If you remember, Vishvamitra Muni knew that Ram would be hesitant to kill a woman because he had been trained, as any cultured person, but he was perfectly trained to respect all women as mother, and you don't kill mother. Western culture, they do anything, but the cow is mother. And anyway, so knowing that he would be reluctant, Vishvamitra Muni gave various arguments. We heard some of those arguments. And Ram's conclusion was, my father said that I should follow whatever instruction you give as obediently as I would follow his, whatever you say. Now, he gave scriptural argument to support what he was saying. He gave some of those evidences. Even with that, when we hold something very deeply, it's very difficult to move from that something we hold very deeply, just on words. Ram had that qualification. And other great souls wanted to give some examples of that from our scripture. Just by hearing from a qualified person. Dhruva Maharaj, when he was very angry that his stepbrother had been killed by a yaksha, he wanted to take revenge. He took his entire army and was wiping out the whole yaksha race. Swayambhuva Manu came and said, "Stop. You can't destroy the whole yaksha race because one yaksha who deserves punishment, death penalty for killing your stepbrother. You can't kill the whole yaksha race. Stop." And he stopped. The Prachetas, when they had come out of the sea after many long years of meditation, and the whole planet was overgrown with vegetation, they wanted to clear the land. They were sons of the king, and there was no agricultural land, and so their bodies acted like human torches, and they began burning all the forests. So the presiding deity of vegetation, the moon god, came before them and said, "Stop. There's some cleared land, but you don't, this forest is food for all living entities, and that's also a duty of the king to see that there's all living entities have the means to maintain themselves. So just stop." So they stopped. Janmejaya, the son of Maharaj Parikshit, when his father was being bitten by a mystical snake bird, he wanted to perform a Sarpa Yajna that would destroy all snakes on the planet. And the Brahmanas, it was working. All the snakes were flying through the air and entering into the fire. And the rishis and some devas said, stop. The Lord has created snakes. You can't just annihilate snakes from the planet. Part of the Lord's planet, stop. So he stopped. The elder brother of Uttanapada, Priyavrata, he had gone long ago, not wishing to be entangled in material affairs and just live a life of pure devotion. Lord Brahma came and said, leave this position and become king. On the word of Brahma, he left his position to become king. When you hold on my point is, when you hold on it's not easy. You hold on to something. I find this to be very significant for our International Society for Krishna Consciousness, because we have, in this room alone, representation from people from cultures in different parts of the world, and we hold different values as we're growing up about this and that and the other thing, and religious views about this and that and the other thing, and values and this and that and the other thing. And we're coming to the shelter of Srila Prabhupada and as our principal Shiksha Guru and founder Acharya of our society, and we have our differences of things that we value. And Srila Prabhupada says, turn left, and we turn left. Turn right, we turn right. That's if we're obedient followers of our founder Acharya. And by that obedience, just like Ram shows in his Leela, by the instruction of his father, his life was directed, of course, he's the Supreme Lord, and from the Supreme Lord came the direction for his father. But he was showing by example. This is part of it's very practical instruction. Doesn't mean it's easy to do something when you want to go right and the instructor says, go left. It's part of the life that we live as becoming transcendentalists, becoming bhaktas, becoming followers of the will of Krishna. Sarvadharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam. That's the principal instruction. And that's the theme that I've been trying to weave in the course of our presentation. Why are we here to hear about Ramayana, the pastimes of Ram and his wonderful devotees? To become attached to him. And by becoming attached to him, our lives go to him. And our lives go to him, and we're no longer in the material world. As we've been hearing the power of hearing these wonderful pastimes of Lord Ramachandra. The involvement in fruit activities is cut, and the life of transcendence and devotion to the personal Godhead replaces it. And there's, of course, little steps along the way, but that's where the path is taking us. So Vishvamitra Muni gave these weapons by mantra to Ram and Lakshman. And then they continue to Siddha Ashram. That's the destination, the purpose for which Vishvamitra Muni requested Ram to come with him to kill Maricha and Sabahu. When they reached there, it was a fantastic place, detailed description of how opulent it looked. And Ram asked Vishvamitra Muni, what is the name of this place? Can you give the history behind it? This is the Siddha Ashram. It's a place where Lord Vamana had resided, and he gives some description. We'll give very quickly, because it's already 5:25. We'll give very quickly. There's slightly different descriptions of the appearance of Vamanadev. Here's the Bhagavatam description, and then we'll go to Valmiki's description, Valmiki Ramayan's description, Vishvamitra Muni's description of the appearance of Vamana. The Bhagavatam description is Kashyapa and Aditi. We've heard they were the mother and father of Varuna, who then became, we heard that description. So, Aditi, there were 12 Adityas, and Aditya number 11 was Lord Vamana. So, when there was difficulty with the demons, the demigods were in difficulty. And so Kashyapa was away for years performing austerities, and when he completed those austerities and returned, he saw the place was vacant and Aditi was morose, and he asked her why. And she said, why? My sons, they no longer are able to perform their activities. The demigods, the demons have overrun them. Then he spoke transcendental knowledge and hankering and lamenting and permanent and impermanent, and didn't help. She was still attached. So what to do? And so Kashyapa said, you should worship the Supreme Lord Janardana, Lord Vishnu, because similar to what Dhruva was told, Lord Vishnu can achieve anything for you. You become devoted and fixed in your devotion to him. So she wanted to know how. So he gave Aditi a very particular process to follow, 12-year process to follow worship of 12-day process to worship Lord Vishnu. And she followed it very strictly. Lord Vishnu came. And when Lord Vishnu came, she had this request, you please become my son and help the other sons. You become the younger son of Indra, the eldest of the Adityas. So Vishvamitra Muni's explanation is similar but different of the appearance of Lord Vamana, because this was a place where, the Siddha Ashram is a place where Lord Vamana came. So Bali Maharaj had conquered all the demigods, and he was doing this yajna. So Vishvamitra Muni said that the devas came to this place, Siddha Ashram, and headed by Agni, they were engaging in discussion how to check Bali. And Bali was in the midst of this major sacrifice where he was giving away anything, everything. And they said, if the Supreme Lord can appear, then he can request anything, everything from Bali, and we'll have our kingdom back. So as they were saying, just as they were saying like that, Kashyapa Muni came to Siddha Ashram. And he had been for 1,000 years engaged in tapasya. And he had just completed. And he was then ready to ask for a benediction from Lord Vishnu. So he did, right on the spot at Siddha Ashram. He offered prayers to the Supreme Lord that please become the son of Aditi and myself. so that the demigods can be pleased and we can have some service and everything will become nice again. So from that time, Vishvamitra Muni said, this place has been called Siddha Ashram. Now the problem is, Maricha and Subbahu, they come to Siddha Ashram. And every time we do yagyas, just as it's coming time for the completion of the yajna, they come and defile the yajna. It spoils everything. Now, if you recall, Vishvamitra Muni has spent long periods of time in the Himalayas to achieve the position of Brahmarshi, of Brahma Rishi. We'll hear more about that as we go along. He left the Himalayas to come to Siddha Ashram to do yagyas for one reason, for the benefit of the world. Because this is Treta Yuga, and yagyas were performed for the benefit of the world. And the service that he was doing for the benefit of the world was being interrupted by Maricha and Subbahu. And so he, Vishvamitra Muni, wanted Ram to destroy them. So Ram said, I'm ready. You can begin your yajna tonight, and we're ready. So he took his vows. Vishvamitra Muni took his vows for the performance of the yajna. The next morning, Ram and Lakshmana approached Vishvamitra Muni. When can we expect Maricha and Subbahu to arrive? He had taken vows of silence, Maunavrata. So he couldn't answer, but the other men in the ashram said, he can't give you the answer, but you should be ready anytime. Normally it'll come at the end, but these Maricha and Subbahu fellows, they can do anything at any time. So be ready 24/7, 24/6. Because it was a 6-day yajna. So they stood guard. They were, Jai and Vijay, serving Vishvamitra Muni and the sages who were doing the yajna. And on the 6th day, everything became very dark, and the fire was flaming very brightly. Ram said, this is it. They're coming, I can tell. And like a big dust storm came, and Maricha and Subbahu in the sky, and all their fiendish associates showering unclean things on the sacrificial fire, and Ram didn't waste any time. He had received these weapons, if you remember, from Vishvamitra Muni, and he took the weapon of Manu, the Manava Astra, and fired the Manava Astra at Maricha, hit him in the chest, and it threw him. Now there are different versions of Ramayana, but this one is 800 miles. And he landed in the sea. It didn't kill him, but he was seriously impacted by that Manava Astra. And then Subbahu, seeing what happened to his brother, Maricha, started attacking even more fiercely. So the Agni Astra was fired at Subbahu, and he fell dead. So Tataka, Subbahu, and Maricha. Now later Maricha goes back and tells Ravana what happened and how powerful is Ram. He's just a young man. At that time, we heard at Siddha Ashram, he was 12, even young man, but so powerful that these two, Maricha and Subbahu, were finished by the power of Ram's arrows. And all the Rakshasa associates did big battle. Ram destroyed them all. And the big cloud and dust storm and all the commotion immediately finished. So the Vishvamitra Muni could complete his yajna, and he was so pleased. And the section ends, our discussion this evening ends. He looked upon Ram and Lakshman with the greatest of satisfaction. In this, the greatest of satisfaction is the satisfaction of a devotee. The greatest of satisfaction is the satisfaction of a devotee. Because he, Vishvamitra Muni, was doing a sacrifice that was for the welfare of the whole world. But he was able to do that by the mercy of Lord Vishnu, or Lord Ram, who he knew to be Lord Vishnu. And he was appreciating what a wonderful exchange. Here's the personality of Godhead, who has given his vow that he'll give protection to his devotees and those that are taking shelter of his service. And here he is, giving this protection that he promised. All along, Vishvamitra Muni, we'll hear some more when we reach the place where Ram was visiting Janaka's palace to see the bow of Lord Shiva. But he had come a long way. The whole story is told by Gautama Rishi's son about the whole history, detailed history of Vishvamitra Muni. But it's a perfect example of becoming a pure devotee. He didn't start there. He started in a very different place. But he became a pure devotee. He became a pure devotee by the mercy of devotees, and ultimately he received the mercy of the personality of Godhead. So he was directly engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead, and he had that realization. He was feeling most fortunate and most protected and most sheltered, although he himself was incredibly powerful. He knew his powers were dependent upon the Supreme Lord, and yet he was being given the opportunity to take what he had been given and give it to Lord Ram. If you remember, the same was the mood of Vasishtha when he was training Ram and Lakshman and Bharata and Shatrughna as boys. He requested Dasarath to go away while he was training them, and then Dasarath went away and he worshipped them with the prayer, "You're the Supreme Lord. And who am I? I'm but your devotee. So what can I give you, because you're the Supreme Lord? But whatever I've been given, let me give it to you," just like offering palmfuls of Ganges to the Ganges. Ganges doesn't need palmfuls. You don't need anything. But this is an opportunity for me to serve. It's very profound. It's a nice story. Very attractive. Little children can understand it. And devotees can gain great lessons. What is it that we have to offer Krishna? It's all Krishna's. It's just the love and devotion with which we offer whatever we offer to Krishna. And he smiles. Not because we're giving him something. It's the love and devotion that makes him smile. And then when that smile is there, then qualities and character, as we heard at Siddha Ashram, at Valmiki Ashram, the qualities and characteristics of Ram, outstanding. He's the personality of Godhead, but he performed Leela where he gained those qualities and characteristics by associating with saintly people and hearing from them and receiving from them that training and qualification from them. It's very deep pastimes of the personality of Godhead. Very meaningful, very powerful, very potent, filled with lessons for us in practical ways how to live our lives. And that's why we're here, to learn how to live our lives in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, time for the Park Festival, right? Is your team ready?
So,
Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Ramachandra ki, Gaur Premanandi.
Thank you, Maharaj. So we have Mahendra Gawalji, our vice chairman, and good wife. They have sponsored the whole farm, children park, very important. No parents will come, the children will come. So this is indirect way to attract the parents. So
You just tell me what to do. I don't know.
we are going to inaugurate the children park and then we'll come and do the others.
Whatever you tell me to do.
Okay.
Just as long as it doesn't take too much time.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai!